Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast. Join us as we delve into the dynamic world of pharmacy, exploring the latest trends, innovations, and insights that shape the industry. Our podcast is proudly brought to you by the Independent Pharmacies of Australia Group, IPA, dedicated to supporting independent and bannered pharmacies nationwide. We're committed to connecting all member pharmacies under the IPA national brand, recognized by Australians for elevating community healthcare to meet local needs. Our vision drives our mission to empower pharmacists and pharmacy professionals. From discussions on healthcare advancements and regulatory updates to interviews with industry experts and success stories from pharmacy professionals, we cover it all. Our goal is to inspire and equip pharmacists to thrive in today's ever-evolving landscape while championing the values of independence, community, and excellence. Hi, today I have the great pleasure of interviewing Kavita Nadan. Kavita is a pharmacist, managing partner at Chemist Discount Center, and co-founder of Locumate and Jobs in Pharmacy. Through innovation and technology, Kavita is focused on supporting pharmacists through their career. From students to registered pharmacists, Kavita wants to empower pharmacists to deliver quality healthcare for the needs of the future whilst enjoying a fulfilling career. Hello, Miss Kavita.
Hello, Melody.
How you doing?
I'm good. Even better now that I'm talking to you.
Oh, look at you being all nice. You know what? We last saw each other at the IPA Summit, which was just a couple of weeks ago.
Feels like forever though, doesn't it?
I know. And at the buffet, as I was putting in some salads, because what else do you do at a pharmacy conference?
Salad is the best thing to eat, yes.
And I looked over and there you were, and I was like, you know what? You need to come and be part of the IPA podcast. Are you free? Are you available? And lo and behold, within 2 weeks, we're sitting here today. So did a bit of background check after that. Spoke to Steve Kastronakis, who is the co-founder of IPA. And I was like, hey, Steve, can you give me a little bit of background on Kavita? Because I know she is part of the CDC group, which is the Chemist Discount Group. She's done a number of talks within the IPA offices on insights of the life of a pharmacist. And he literally gave me 15 minutes of a brief background of you.
Yeah.
But the story that came out of his mouth, I was like, this does not warrant 15 minutes. This warrants me talking to the source and hearing the story for myself.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So please, if you don't mind, just taking me on the journey of how you became a pharmacist.
I guess a way to really understand my roots and where I came from is, I came from Fiji. I came to Australia at the age of 6 or 7, and we moved into, I'd say, bordering on rural regional Victoria. So can you imagine the culture shock I had entering a new country and with people who looked very, very different to me? So navigating that as a first gen migrant in regional Victoria had its own challenges, but it built a lot of resilience. And I think that actually has contributed to my character and where I am today. Anyhow, so we moved into a town called Maui, and my dad, because of certain health issues, had to frequent a certain pharmacy quite regularly. So he got to know a Mr. Stephen Kastronakis quite well, who was a pharmacy owner in this town of this specific pharmacy. And so when it came time for, as we got older, we wanted to come to university, down in Melbourne, into the city. My parents decided, okay, it's time to move. We can't literally be driving 2 hours, or, the kids, because in our culture, you don't move out of home unless you're married, right? Yeah. So it was not even up for conversation or negotiation. So moving into the suburbs, my dad asked, is there an opportunity for my girls, my sister and myself, to be able to find some work in one of his other pharmacies? And so Steve, he quickly grabbed, I think it was like a Post-it note or whatever piece of paper was available on his dispensary counter. And he quickly wrote down, hey, give these girls a job. And so we moved into Berwick, a little bit closer into the city area or suburbs, I would say, Metro Melbourne. And that's where I started my actual first step into pharmacy world. And that was the age of about 16. And I worked as a pharmacy assistant. So when it came time to actually choose my career path after graduating year 12, I was a little bit lost, like every 17, 18-year-old is. Nobody knows what they want to do with the rest of their life, let alone their career. So I kind of was like, I know I want to be in the health professional space, but I didn't really want to be a doctor. I didn't have that drive in me to be the doctor. I wanted to work with people quite firsthand, like constantly be around people. That's what I was used to. So for me, I decided on pharmacy because it felt like a safe space. It was my comfort zone. And
Yeah.
for me, I thought, you know what? I know what happens in the retail, in that front of shop aspect, but what do pharmacists actually do? I still didn't really know the full depth of that. So like any starry-eyed 17-year-old who sees the city for the first time, the big lights, I failed my first year of pharmacy school, and it was a massive shock to my parents. Can you imagine my parents who literally,
Oh,
I still have PTSD from when I sat at the kitchen table
I
learning my
can
maths, my times tables.
only imagine.
And then to fail that first year, it was like, whoa, Kavi, like, and I was the kid who
Yes.
was the always got the
Yeah.
120%, right? So I'm like, whoa, okay, I really need to figure out what I want to do. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stick with pharmacy. I do enjoy it. And I did. And when I got through the course, I mean, I got through the course. I didn't actually, I wasn't those high achievers. For me, I was always about doing what's next, right?
Yeah.
So I got through the course, and then I was like, all right, I do want to venture out and try some new things. So I did locum for the group. This was Advantage Pharmacy Group by that stage.
Yeah.
I locumed. I went to like Bairnsdale. I worked in Morning. I worked for a lot of the pharmacies in the group.
Mm.
And it was such a great experience for me to be able to see how people did things differently, which really helped when it got to the point where I was then managing my own pharmacy out again in regional Victoria, because I picked up these bits and pieces and ways and processes and how to manage people as well. That, to be honest, managing people was probably the biggest learning curve of anything
It's
that
the
I've done.
hardest,
It
isn't it?
is so tough. And
And
I
they don't
tell,
teach you that at
no,
university. We learn all about the medications, we learn all about, mechanisms of actions, but then you're thrown in on the first day and you're boss and you're
your
thinking,
boss. And here you are as a 22, 23-year-old managing people who've been in pharmacy for 30 years, right? So it really is a big, like, change in style, and
yeah,
knowing who you are and your values and all of that comes to surface. And I feel like it was such a great stepping stone, because without that experience, like, I wouldn't have known if I really did want to continue on with that partnership ownership journey, right? So I highly encourage any pharmacists who are like straight, I want to be an owner one day.
mm,
Go do your time, as I call
yeah,
it. Go and actually be in the thick of it. Learn your style. Learn how you want to approach things. Like, for me, as a business person, as a director, as someone who owns my own pharmacy, I'm not into, like, I don't look at my books every day. I'm not into like how much am I going to make, the margins. This is my way that I run my business, and my business flourishes is through my people. I
yeah.
am 100% sold on, if I empower my team to be able to be there and know the purpose of what I'm trying to achieve, I know they will make sure that my business is successful and we as a team are successful, right? So that really was important when I got into Chemist Discount Centre in Debbie Hills, which, by the way, is the first Chemist Discount Centre in the brand. It really helped for me to have learned what I had built up over those few years and then bring it to my team. And you know what? I guess that for me is my biggest pride, is the team that I've built and continue to build.
Yeah.
And I've taken that across to my Locumate journey as well when we did that startup, because whilst Serge, my co-founder, is much more of a business mind, I'm more of the people culture and actually building that company up. And I think that's where, besides being a marriage in, like in unity and being a couple, it's a really good marriage for the business that we've created as well.
Now, one of the things I've heard you say numerous times, and you've just said it again here, is that team that you build and that you surround yourself with. You spoke at APP, I would like to say 2003, was it? You were on
2023? Yeah.
yeah, you
Yeah.
were on the panel. And that was one of the elements you spoke of as well,
Yeah.
that you need to ensure that the team around you is empowered, is inspired. Now, how do you go about doing that? I mean, it's how do you impart your vision to a team coming from different walks of life to be in a position where you can walk away and the vision remains?
It that's a very good question, and I think something that I don't often reflect upon, because I feel like sometimes I just do it for the sake, because it just comes natural. But it's really important, because I feel that you should sit down and think about how and what approach and steps you take. So for me, I guess if I break it down, when I hire somebody, I always ask them in the interviews. I don't really care too much about, their skills. Like, I can teach them things, right? I will be able to teach them how to do this process, how to be able to do X, Y, Z. For me, what's important is, how passionate are they? How much do they really want to be there? What is their future long-term vision and goals? So when we hire interns, especially at my pharmacy, I want to know, are you going to be, what is your pathway look like? Where do you want to end up? Because if I can have a part in that, I will
Yeah.
be able to then curate the role and be able to give you the resources, the tools, everything available that I have in my power to be able for you to upskill and to develop. I think for us as pharmacists and as managers and owners and anyone who's in a leadership position, we constantly want to be checking in with our staff regularly to see where their head's at. I've had team members who've come in from the age of 16 and been, a pharmacy assistant. And even at the age of 23, they're like now looking at pharmacy and become a pharmacist down the track, right? So you think if that's the influence you can have on people's trajectory and their career paths, it's so important that you make sure that you're constantly checking in to see where they want to go down that path. And it might not be, they might decide that I don't want to be in pharmacy, but if you've imparted something to them that they can use further down the track in their own careers in something different, that's amazing. You've helped to build this person's character, a part of their values. And I think that's so important. So I guess in terms of like properly answering your questions, like when you have your staff, you get them into your team, they are one of you. You are not the boss lady, always dictating stuff. You have to have collaboration. You have to have regular check-ins. You have to have a plan around where do they want to be. And that whole question around where do you see yourself in 3-5 years time, right? It's
Yes.
actually really important. That's actually my favorite question on any sort of review, is because I feel like that's how you then plan for this person's future. And that's your responsibility as a manager or a leader to be able to do that.
And I love the way that you've put that you're not the boss, you're working together with your team, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who have to execute everything that
Correct.
you put in place. If tomorrow you decide, let's say we're going to be opening up vaccines to the whole of that area, it's on them to get the signups, to speak to the patients, to speak to everyone who walks through the door and inspire and educate the patients around that. Because as a pharmacist, I think we try and do everything just by ourselves. We are too afraid to let anyone else into our space almost.
100%. Yeah, yeah. We're
And the
very
fact,
protective.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's because we fear if a mistake is made, what does that look like? What's the consequences on us? And that's why we're so guarded. We want to be the one who dispenses, checks, hands out, and then talks to the patient about the vaccine, the
Yeah.
whole gamut of everything. But you've actually also gone that one step further to empower your team members and also encourage the next generation of pharmacists.
Yeah, absolutely,
And that's
Melody.
a big thing.
Yeah.
And did that stem from your own experience as your walk through this journey? Is that where it came from?
I think so. I think that, you just never know how or what somebody is wanting to do with their life, especially young people who are coming in really kind of lost and not sure where they want to go with things. If you can try and help them figure out a part of their journey, I think that's so important. And one thing that I always do in my pharmacy is we have this system that everyone should know how to do everything. Like it's literally just kind of like almost like a little tagline is everyone should know how to do everything. So, when you talk about how do I walk away and make sure that my whole pharmacy doesn't burn down, is making sure that that junior who comes in, 8 hours a week will still know how to be able to take in scripts, where things are located, how to be able to, uh, do a sale, a process, a merch query, any process that's in our pharmacy, they should still know how to do it. And I like to train up all my staff where possible to be dispense techs, because that continuity of care runs through the whole pharmacy, right? So you have that ability to have everybody, one, they're knowledgeable, upskilled, and then also to be able to work in any part of that pharmacy as well. So you have that consistency, you have that ability of knowing that your pharmacy is going to be looked after, but it also gives them, an extra layer of knowledge and skills that they probably wouldn't have got elsewhere.
That is very true. Love that, because they also remain sticky to you. That's when,
Correct.
yeah,
Yes.
they feel like they're part of the business. They take ownership.
Yes.
Ownership is the word I'm looking for.
100%. Absolutely.
Speaking of ownership, so Chemist Discount Center, Endeavor Hills.
Yes.
You've been part owner of that for 10 years now?
Gosh, I think it's coming up more to, it'd be about 11 years this year. So
Yeah.
Yep.
And so how did that journey begin? Because surely you didn't jump from being a retail assistant, then pharmacist, and then you just woke up and said, you know what? I'm going to buy me a pharmacy.
Oh, that would be the dream, but no. So as I said before, I mean, I've been with the boys. I'll call them the boys because they're my boys. John, Steve, and Michael Gray for since I was 16. I was part of their group of pharmacies, right, in the inner sanctum, we should call it. And so I guess for me, it was always I knew I wanted to be. Ever since I was little, I was always in these roles of I want to be a leader, I want to be an owner, I want to be a boss. That was just ingrained in me. I don't know where it's come from, but it's just something that I wanted to always do. So for me, the next step after I managed Churchill was, hey, either it's ownership or I go and do something completely different where I then start a new pathway for me, right? So I remember calling Michael Gray saying, I want to do my MBA. So could you be a reference for me, right? And he's like, oh, no, just hold that thought. I think I've got something for you. And so that's where the opportunity of Endeavour Hills came up. By that time, I'd had probably about 5 years of experience. I had managed Churchill for 4 years. Had been doing pretty well. And I'd known Michael for a while. He's been a mentor for me since that time. So for him, I guess, it worked both ways. I didn't want to leave the group, and he didn't want to lose me. So I think we came to an agreement, and he's like, look, we're opening up our first discount model, pharmacy. Would you like to be a part of it? I'm like, all right. So, that option. And me, Melody, I put my hand up for everything. As long as it doesn't kill me, I will put my hand up for everything. Okay. I assess that risk, but yeah, as long as, I have the opportunity to try something new, do something that's a part of innovation or is going to create some new opportunities, I'll put my hand up. So I'm like, wow, this is it's an opportunity to partnership.
Yes.
But B, it's a whole new model, right? I will be able to really give the feedback and allow it to come to life, right? And be quite involved in it. So for me, that was really exciting as well. So that's when the opportunity came up. I remember sitting down at a table and there was like literally the blueprints of this Chemist Discount Center model, like the color schemes, the plans, and where they wanted to take it. It was so exciting to be a part of that conversation.
Definitely.
And now that I reflect back, I'm like, wow, look at us. Look at where CDC is now. And we were at the start of that. And it's so cool to be on that journey.
That's because I was going to ask why CDC, why Chemist Discount Center, when there's so many brands, but you've just answered it. You were in the forefront, on the ground level, basically, when it started as just an idea.
Correct.
And then a concept. So when you actually, because I think I would have been overwhelmed at that point.
Yeah.
Yes, it's one thing to buy into an already existing pharmacy. It's a whole different thing when you're buying a concept. So you're
Yes.
buying a blueprint, you're buying a color scheme at this point.
Mm-hmm.
How did, like, sitting at that table, looking at all that, and knowing that probably this is one of the very first ever, you don't know whether there's a future with it, you don't even know whether it will work. What was going through your mind? What was, like, was it like, I trust them, or you're thinking, what if, like, do you know what I mean? Have you
I
ever
know.
bought something and think to yourself, what did I do that for? I don't really need that.
All the time. This is the
Yeah.
world of online purchases,
Here
right?
you're buying into
Yeah.
not, a pair of shoes, but you're buying into a business.
100%, Melody. And I guess in my mind, yes, I trusted these guys. I trusted John, Steve, and Mike. You know, they had almost raised me in the pharmacy world, right? I came as a young kid, and now here I was talking to them about buying a pharmacy. I knew that, you know, at that point, spending what 8, 9 years by that point with them, that if there was a decision, if they were going to be honest to me with me about anything, it would be at this table. And you know, they did lay out a few things that could potentially be there. These are the things we're going to have to do. It's going to be a lot of hard work. It's going to be a lot of change management. And I was like, all right, like for me as a 25-year-old, half of that stuff I didn't really understand the enormity of it, right? You're just like, okay, yeah, cool. But I went into it, and it was probably it was a very hard time because the demographics of where we set it up was quite
Yes.
challenging. We had a massive ethnic community who was very resistant to change, but then also managing the team expectations, your staff, like, you know, oh, we're going from being this brand to now a discount model. What does that mean? So there was a lot of, I guess, facets that we had to consider. And doing that, because ultimately as a partner and a managing partner, it's up to you. It really is. Like, you're the one in the driver's seat. So you're the one who influences the direction of how this will go. So that first few years were very, very much a teething era, let's call it. It was just finding things that worked, that didn't work, like things like catalogs, you know. I
Yeah.
remember executing them with my retail manager. We would get up to our pharmacy at like 6 a.m. in the morning just to make sure that everything was done to the process and see how it worked, what didn't. And I look back now and I look at the team now, and it just flows so seamlessly, right? So you can see that it's so nice to see that where we started, which every company when it starts at its very birthing stage, it just will have so many things that you have to deal with, and so many things that come out of nowhere that you're going to just have to manage and put out fires. But I guess for me, I had the support of, you know, the John, the Steve, and the Mike, and everybody else around them who helped me to be able to navigate all that. And I think that's so important in any partnership. It is a marriage, in any business undertaking that you take with anybody else, who isn't your actual life partner, that you need to have a level of, you know, communication, transparency, honesty, but rely on them. Tell them, like,
Yes.
I would say, I don't know what this means. I don't know what to do. Can you give me guidance? Like, and the beauty of it was someone like Mikey, he would drop everything just to take a call from me. Like, it would be at 9 p.m. at night time. It doesn't matter. Like, he was always available. And, you know, having someone who's always available to guide you is so important.
Challenges wise, because you just spoke of a couple of teething elements
Yes.
that you went through the years, how have you handled some of the challenges you face? Because obviously you're learning, but you also need to be quite good at what you're doing at the
Mm-hmm.
same time. So you don't have, failure is not an option. I would take it.
Yeah.
You just had to keep going. And I'm sure there were moments where you thought, you know what, I'm done. This is it. But then you kept going. You kept going. How did you
Yeah.
face those challenges? What
Yeah.
one
Look,
tip? What one tip can you give me?
one tip. Okay. So for me, because if you think about it, I went into ownership, and then maybe probably 3, 4 years later, I then had my first child as well. So there you have another spanner in the works, right? So you're an owner who's been at the pharmacy literally almost 7 days a week to having to cut back. That for me, like that change and that shift from being like, that was my baby. My
Mhm.
first baby was my
Very true.
pharmacy,
Yeah.
right? I spent all of my time, effort, energy into it. And now there's a little human that relies on you more than that your pharmacy, and puts things into perspective. So I guess for me, making sure that you have to, as a tip, be able to know your limitations and set some boundaries. It's so important, which is something that I didn't really do at the start. I would constantly be,
Available.
hey, available.
Yeah.
100%. And so when you're constantly available, you're also constantly in reserves with your energy, your time, and your mental state. So it's only taken me, what, 10, 12 years to actually come to that realization. But as a young pharmacist who's in the thick of it all, you don't realize how much of your time and energy that you actually spend on building something, so that when challenges come, you just put them out, but you don't learn too much from them because you're just kind of in that motion. So I guess another thing is, having the boundaries, but also reviewing and reassessing if there is something that does come up, what could I have done better, or what did I do right? And doing that is so important, because next time you're faced with that similar thing, you're going to know exactly what to do. It's just a rinse and repeat. So there are, I guess, the two main things that I've really, really learned along the way. And I think stuff that you can actually apply to real life as well.
Very true, very true. Because
Mm,
we are, as pharmacists, we do make ourselves available. We
yes.
do work the 6 hours. We do work the 12 hours. We work 7 days a week, 6 days a week. COVID had some of us working until 9 p.m. in the evening.
Insane.
Speaking of which, everything would you characterize and say that everything that you've been through, every situation you've come across has led you now to this entrepreneurial space that you're now stepped into with Locumate? Because it's as if you didn't have enough on your plate, you know, we don't have enough, so we add more. But
Yeah.
how did Locumate come about? Was
Yeah.
it something where you thought, I want to be a challenger to the industry? Or Steve told me that you are the true example of someone who saw a gap, a need, and filled it.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess everything that I approach, I will always try and make sure. So whether it's something at home or it's a process in a dispensary, I'll always review and reassess about how can we make this better? Like, why are we doing, why is this an extra step we're doing now? Can we make it more efficient, right? I've always run my pharmacies like that. I won't have an extra 2 steps in a process which I know we can actually cut down and automate or make more efficient. Like, I'm always been looking for ways to be able to better systems
Yeah.
in our pharmacies. So, and especially, if CDC is like, oh, let's roll something out, be like, yes, please, let's do it with me. Like, I'm happy to trial that, right? So we've always been that kind of hub. And I guess that's just been a general mentality for my team and myself. So I guess with Locumate, when I saw the inefficiencies in getting talent into pharmacy, I was like, surely, come on, we're in 2020. Like, there has to be a better way. Honestly, with all the tech that we have available now, yet we all know, Melody, that pharmacy and healthcare generally is just so behind. Light years behind in tech,
We are the
right?
last. We're still
We're
doing
the last.
fax machines
Correct.
and
The good
yeah.
old fax machine. And even now, you cannot take that away from me, right?
I'm still
Because
faxing.
we're still faxing, because it is still a requirement with other health professionals. We're all in this hub of faxing and still sticking to what we know because it's in our comfort zone. So I want to challenge that. And I guess, like, in the peak of COVID, coming home at that 9 or 10 p.m. at nighttime, during COVID, when you're working ridiculous hours, you just want to vent because all day you've just been working. So for me, it was literally a venting session at the kitchen table with Serge, saying, please, you're a techie, like, sort this out for me. Can you help me with this? Right. So that's when it started. And we realized that was not just a gap for filling like locums and pharmacies. It was a gap for filling talent and access to that talent across the industry, and not just our industry. We
Yes.
realized it's a problem, that workforce issue and the talent sourcing is an issue across many
Nurses,
industries.
doctors. Yeah.
Everybody, correct. And so over the years, we've tweaked it, manipulated, and we've now realized that our tech is actually can be transferred across these industries and across multiple verticals to be able to provide the same solution to the same problem that exists. So that's where Locumate came about. And I guess, yes, so constantly, if you're a pharmacist or if you're a person who is thinking, how do I change things? How do I make things better?
Yeah.
You're an entrepreneur. It could be, how do I make things better in how I make my cup of tea? Like, do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Everyone has that entrepreneurial spirit. It's just how much you really want to make it a real life business solution or a company. That takes a lot more effort, obviously, but you just need to have the support around you to be able to achieve it. And for me, just having the ability, now that I'd had my pharmacy for a while, having good managers and setting it up to be able to be carried and dealt with, and be managed appropriately, allowed me to step away and focus on another project. And I think for me and for anybody, like, I love to be, constantly challenged, constantly learning and developing. So it was really important for me to be able to do that. Yeah.
In one of the podcasts I was listening to, you actually said something, and I'm going to quote you. An expert is an expert for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
You spoke about Serge, your husband, and he's a co-founder on Locumate and probably the backbone, because you come home probably with, I would like this.
Yeah.
Could you do this for me?
Yeah.
And then he goes off into his
Yeah.
little workshop and
Great.
CrossFit and gives it to you. Now, with Locumate, what did it start off with? What did you start as? Because I remember APP when we first met,
Yes.
and you had a booth. And I think you only had a screen at the booth. And you were like, this is what we do. We place pharmacists in locum positions. And I was like, okay, cool. Do you know that I'm actually signed up to Locumate?
Yes, I think I've seen your profile. I know.
Gotta update my CV though. I've done a lot since then. So that was the first element. And then we saw each other the next year.
Mm.
And then you had an AI tool.
Yeah.
And you had a pharmacist who was from America. I think his name was Michael, who was also at the booth and present at APP. And then this year, I see other elements, and I'm like, whoa. So tell me, Locumate,
Yes.
apart from just placing pharmacists or talent in the right location and providing an opportunity for, number one, a pharmacy owner to get an experienced pharmacist, and also providing locuming experiences for pharmacists who want to delve into that, or who are thinking of retiring but still want to stay in the industry, or even just want to use it as a way to travel.
Yes.
To get around Australia, see different places, experience different things. What's the journey been like from start to finish? Because that booth is getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah. We may have to do like a massive one like IPA next year, right? You never know. So I guess you're absolutely right. So my first frustration when I came to Surge was about just getting that locum talent into the pharmacy, just having that visibility over it, the budget requirements, and just creating, if you I guess would compare like an Uber for pharmacists, connecting locums and pharmacies to be able to create an automated, seamless, transparent way or platform of connecting them, right? However, I guess for me, when I talk about people, I'm always a people person. I talk about teams, I talk about building teams, I talk about talent in our teams. Our vision was always to make sure that we allowed access to talent, whether it was pharmacists, pharmacy assistants, retail managers down the track, and talent in all aspects of pharmacy, right? So Serge and I took a step back last year. We're like, whilst we're fixing a part of the problem, which is getting a locum pharmacist to cover, on-demand shifts, etc., leave, we're not fixing the wider problem of, workforce, which is where we wanted to play in. And for us, it was when a pharmacy has a requirement for any shift, they will call an internal black book, you would call it, or internal contact list, and say, hey, can you work this shift? Can you cover here? If they don't answer, you'll go to a marketplace, which Locumate has. If they don't find anything there, you'll go to an agency, right? So there's this whole process or steps that you follow, and typically they're emails, faxes, or phone calls, text messages. So many different mediums we're using. It's a mess. So we
Yes.
thought, you know what? If we're trying to automate this whole process, we need to automate and connect that whole complete process of getting that talent in. So now we've taken a step, it's a layer above. So now what we are is we're, as Serge likes to call it, the orchestration engine. So the one that every process, every part you want to tap into, we connect the dots. So whether it is you want to go to your internal pool, whether you want to go to the marketplace or the agency, it's all done in the app at the click of a button. And this is where I guess this is so appealing to the likes of your nurses or your doctors, is that that's the processes that they follow as well, right? And I guess it fits into the fact that as Locumate, and we didn't want to change the name because I'm like, there is an origin to this, right? The origin is the name came about because we're like, locums, we're automating it. Plus, we're like their mate, right? So it came up as this, what about Locumate? And we thought, you know what? We want to stick with the name. At the end of the day, that's our origin story as to how that name came about.
Yes.
But essentially, we're a tech company. We're here to make sure that we automate, we provide the tech, we provide the AI aspect, which we have now embedded into like our job board, to be able to make ultimately that experience for the user amazing. That's what we want to do. And we want to be able to create extreme, like the best efficiencies we can to be able to get that talent in, because ultimately that's what we're about. We're about the workforce, we're about the people, and if we can use our tech to be able to make things easier for our organizations, then that's what we're trying to achieve.
You are so right, because I remember during COVID, I couldn't work a shift, and it was put upon me to find a locum. And I had to try 3 different locums. I remember the first one I called, she was like, I'm no longer a pharmacist. And I was like,
Gosh.
what
happened?
Cool. And then the second one was, I'm sorry, I'm working elsewhere. And then from there, you're right, you had to go through all that, but you're doing this in between trying to do scripts, trying to serve, and it's time. It's
Of course.
time you don't have to find someone to, and it was just one day. I couldn't do it.
Yes.
It wasn't, I think I had school that day because I was still in school. Not for pharmacy. I just want to put a disclaimer.
I hold it a second.
But yeah, and time was, and we don't have time to give
Correct.
to just doing that one job or one task. But I want to also ask, what is that AI element that you've incorporated? Because when we hear AI, we're thinking robotics, we're thinking, so I'm here thinking, what, you got an AI interviewing me? What, you got AI doing the work that I'm supposed to be doing? Talk to me. What is this?
Robot of you out there. Yeah, I know. AI is so, and Sergio and I literally spoke about it this morning, is that AI is everywhere. I swear every second thing you hear is about AI, but the use of AI and actually using it properly is another different thing, right? So for us, I mean, we've changed our name from Locumate to Locumate AI. Locumate is now just our marketplace in pharmacy. But Locumate AI, the AI component we've used and utilized to be able to, create better options for our pharmacies and pharmacists. So with the job board as an example, you will upload your CV, Melody, and you'll put in, your where you get your qualifications from. So from your CV, the AI will actually capture and write your bio and create your profile on the app for you. And it will literally just pick up some keywords. You'll click a few of your, so some soft skills you have, and that will build out your profile to the point where it just reads amazing, right? And so when jobs come up, you'll be matched according to what's being created from the AI, your soft skill matching, which will match up again into the right job. So we're fitting the right talent into the right job through the use of AI. And to to your point about will an AI interview me? Oh yeah, we could do that. So you as a pharmacy, you've put a job up. That first round of interviews, we can have AI actually do that first round of interviews, make sure we get all the questions answered, again saving you time, saving you money, and then shortlisting your applicants so that you get the right talent in for your pharmacy. And it's funny because I feel like in pharmacy, I don't think I've ever interviewed for a job in my community pharmacy career,
Yeah,
right?
me
Never. It's
too.
always been like, here you go, there's a role available. Okay, cool. But now, as we start to get more services, more professional services, we're going down that clinical care path. It's so important we have the right fit in our pharmacy, the right
Yes.
people doing the right thing. So, interviewing, getting that right person is going to be so much more critical.
Mhm.
And to be able to do that, because we are all time poor, we can't have all the questions. We don't even know how to interview properly at times as well. We haven't been given that skill set. Having that AI piece there will also allow to be able to get that first round of interviews done so that you can then progress and then have that conversation with the right people.
And that's great because when you put a job posting, sometimes you'll get 100 applicants coming through. You can't sit down with 100. You can't even look at 100 CVs. At the end of it, I think they all start looking the same.
Oh,
So you need to
absolutely.
sift it to shortlist that
Yes.
and then only interview those that are shortlisted. And even from
100%.
that, you need to ensure that the right person, like you said, is in the right job, but even
Yes.
in the right location. Because
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love rural pharmacy, love
Mhm.
it to bits. I've only ever worked in rural,
Yeah.
only moved to metro when I had to start doing my master's here in Sydney. And
Yeah.
it was an adjustment. It was hard, actually.
Yeah.
Job satisfaction sometimes wasn't there because I found that in metro, sometimes you could just be a cash and wrap
Yes, correct.
and they see you as a cash and wrap. But then as time's gone on, I've built relationships with the patients that I work at the pharmacy. And at the same time, you could be a city person and we move you to rural regional Australia with very little to do. And believe me, when the owner comes up, they will be on the plane leaving. You will be on the plane.
I
It's
know. I
happened before
know.
in Derby where
100%.
the owner went to visit the pharmacy and had a locum. And as they landed, like the small aircraft landed, the locum was waiting at the tarmac with her suitcases. She was like, yeah,
I'm out.
I'm out. Thank God you're here.
Correct. And imagine we had done all that pre-check and they had known exactly what they were getting into prior to taking that on, right? And that world is here right now. So I guess, we have way more visibility, way more transparency. And as we keep talking about, the right fit.
But you haven't stopped in Australia, actually, have you? Because I actually read a news article on, was it Tech Review?
Yes, yep.
And you've stepped into America, in California to be exact.
Yes, correct.
Okay, tell me a little bit about that.
So it's interesting. We Serge went to a conference now, probably in 2022, uh, just to see what it was like in the US, because we'd spoken to a few people, and they said this needs to come to the US, and we're like, all right, does it really? We need to really scope it out. And when he was in the line at the conference, and there's a lady in front of him, and it was October, right? So what is it? Fall there? It's pumpkin season, and he's just like, pumpkin spice latte? What is that? And this lady turns around and she's like, oh, it's only like the best thing ever. It's like we do pumpkin. Like pumpkin's a big thing right now in the US. And he's like, oh, okay. And that lady turned out to be the president of the California Pharmacy Association. So that is where then they got to talking and she realized like we need to do this. It's a big requirement for the US. So I guess that was the first time that conversation started. And over the years, Surge had that constant communication with them, and we've just created the entity Health Shifts in
Mhm.
partnership with the American Pharmacy Association and the California Pharmacy Association, and we've signed on a group of pharmacies association and with 100 members in there, and that's going to be launching very, very soon. And so already we're there, hoping that, it's kind of like we're starting from scratch again, but having learned everything we have from Australia. So in a sense, I guess it's not really like that whole, oh, what are we doing? It's now we know what we're doing. We know exactly how to execute it. But it's been fun and it's exciting, and we've got a lot of stuff happening there. The job board as well will be going there as well. Again, a huge requirement. And if you look at California and look at Australia, massive, right? Like much bigger, but it's still one state. And I guess if we can get California right, we'll then be just rolling that out nationally. So that's a big project for us in the coming next 12 to 18 months for sure.
Well, congratulations. Big congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm actually going to throw one of your favorite questions back at you, the one that you use in an interview. In totality of everything that you do. Yeah. So this includes being an IPA member. Mm-hmm. This includes being a CDC pharmacy owner.
Yeah.
It includes being a healthcare professional, an entrepreneur, a mom. Mm-hmm. Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years' time?
Sure. Great question. Okay. So for me, I see as a mum, making sure that my girls are doing their thing. I mean, being independent little boss women, because I'm hoping that I'm creating a stepping stone and they can see what they can achieve as well. That's really, really important for me. I guess on a professional front with Locumate, we want to be, chugging along and really expanding across the US, getting into other verticals in Australia. So, utilizing Australia as that test bed to see how we go. We're currently in talks with other verticals. We've signed an allied health already who's in podiatry and will go into physiotherapy. And just utilizing and seeing where our tech can and creating, these opportunities and partnerships with anybody who may require the tech in their industries. So we want to be global. We want to be everywhere because I know we can be. And I know that once people realize that it's such a unique offering, that they will be able to adopt it and instill it in their organizations. Pharmacy-wise, with chemist discounts in Endeavour Hills, just grow it. I've put 2 new managers in, a professional services manager, a intern who had been with me last year and is just amazing. She is brilliant. And I just want to further her career, right? She wants to get into ownership down the track. So for me, this is like a stepping stone for her. And I want to talk about empowerment. I want her to be able to do this so that she can grow Endeavour Hills to what it can be. Because there's a lot more potential for Endeavour Hills as well. And just getting a good management leadership team in place. I do want to probably get into more pharmacies, so get another 1 or 2 pharmacies under my belt because I love it. I love seeing pharmacies grow from scratch, and I think having a part in that would be amazing. So yeah, grow the portfolio, grow the pharmacies, stay in pharmacy, but also be able to do some mentorship as well. If there's opportunities to be able to lead, to be able to help like women pharmacists as well, or pharmacy assistants, retail assistants, techs, give them opportunities, give them guidance, do workshops. Like I would love to do that sort of thing as well.
Well, at IPA, we're always rooting for you. You know that, and you always you always have a home here. And I know that you took time to actually come to Sydney to sit down with us and gave us a whole day.
Yes.
To actually just go through what my life looks like.
Yeah.
And as a tradition on the podcast, we always ask 2 final questions.
Yes.
One actually comes from an independent Pharmacy of Australia employee or a team member, and the other one comes from ChatGPT.
Good old ChatGPT. I love it. Love that we're using the tech in here.
Lahim Galler, who is our content and social media manager, asks, and she was actually in one of those workshops, how do you balance life as a pharmacist, a business owner, a mom, and a partner? Because you don't look stressed. You don't have a single gray hair on you. So what's your secret?
What's my secret? Good genes, I think. You saw my mom. No, I actually think like having like juggling that many balls actually helps me to keep a steady head. For me, I like to be busy. If I get stagnant, for me, that's not good for me or my mental health. So I guess for me, how do I manage and balance everything? It's in, and it may not work for everyone, but being busy is actually a good thing. It keeps you young, it keeps you fit, it keeps your mind working. And the way that I usually structure, and I talked about boundaries at the start of this podcast, was that, between the hours of, say, 6 to 8, I make sure that I'm available to my girls 100%. That's when I have the time to sit down with them, talk with them, make sure that I am mum. And that's when mum mode is on. Because if I'm not and I'm doing work, I'm answering emails, they don't see mum, right? So you have to, as a mum, as a partner, as a business owner, you can't ever switch off. But I feel like segmenting some of your time, especially the one with your kids, is so important. And my weekends are completely dedicated to them. So although mum is going away or doing stuff for work, I'm always available to them on the weekends when it matters most. And time with partner, like Serge and I, try and schedule, some time away. We've got amazing supportive parents who will take the kids. So getting a dinner date in and keeping that relationship, because as much
Yeah,
as we are business partners, that can
exactly.
it can all get entwined very quickly, right? So taking that time out just to go away and not talk business, just to talk about things and to go for a walk or to go out for dinner or a coffee. If we're working from home together, let's go grab a coffee and work from a cafe together. Like, at least it's something we're doing.
Yeah.
And keeping that bond and that connection strong, because let me tell you, Melody, that first 2 years was it was very tough, going from being partners to
Yeah.
being business partners and both directors, and having very different working styles.
Yeah.
It was a massive learning curve for us, but one that we've now learned to understand and to accept each other's strengths and weaknesses and be able to come together and know when to step in and when not to. So yeah, that's how we manage. I guess there's no secret formula, but it's just knowing what to do when, and to step away from things when you feel like it's too much.
I'm going to ask you the same question when full scope of practice comes into play, because I'm still, even though New South Wales hasn't started, I'm already
Mm,
starting to formulate how
yeah,
am I going to balance, juggle. So I'm going to come to you and say, how are you doing it? And we can learn
sure.
from each other because,
100%.
yeah,
Absolutely. And that's why I've put in a professional services manager, right? Because I feel like, as I've got a PIC, but how do you ask your PIC to manage full scope, manage the dispensary, manage your staff? Like, it's so unfair. So if you split those roles, it's like splitting the roles that you have in your life. Split that role in your pharmacy, you're going to be able to get better outcomes because the focus will be there. So 100%. You come to me, Melody, and I'll tell you what we're doing at Endeavour Hills and what's worked and what hasn't, because I know we'll be failing at some stuff, but at least, you know what, we're going to learn from that.
yeah, you'll be training in others. And
Yeah.
that's one thing I actually need to learn. Failure is okay, and it's okay to make a mistake and just to keep going.
Yeah.
Because
And
I think, like you, my background has been that, you know, the golden child, you have failure is not an option. So you tend
yeah,
to hold yourself back from doing stuff.
100%. I think there's a pharmacist intrinsic quality as well, right? Because if you fail, you could kill that
Yes.
person.
Yeah.
That's how we're kind of, it's in our brain.
Yeah.
So I guess moving forward, like, and starting a startup has been a big wake up call of, wow, there are so many mistakes you make and you just feel like horrible, but it's not the end of the world. And I think accepting that it's not the end of the world, especially in pharmacy, in your pharmacy, where there are things that you might have tweaked, as long as you can come back from it, you can recover. It's a good mistake that you've made. It's
Yeah.
good that you have done and gone through that, because A, it builds you up, but secondly, it allows you to be then able to do things differently and see.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And being part of new beginnings as well, not being afraid to venture out into new space means that there's no one else who's done it. So you can just
Oh,
camouflage
100%.
that. And
Well, nobody's done it before. We don't have a blueprint, right? We are actually the ones just doing it, failing at the same time, but then, learning as well. I always say to Serge, like, our weeks can look like, especially with Locumate, like literally like this the whole time. It's just going down. And then on a Friday, we'll get some amazing news and it's like, woo, yay, like amazing. Like all those little failures and all those troughs we had throughout the week, it's okay, it's all right, because when and celebrating every milestone is so important, like the littlest thing. If you just celebrate it, it just makes things so exciting. It's like having that annual leave booked, going away on a trip. You're like, you work towards it. That's so
and
important.
now you can 100%. And having said that, you are actually taking part in a pilot program that IPA has announced for point of care testing, and just it's undiscovered territory at the present moment. And it's actually quite innovative. It's massive. We can't wait to get the learnings from the pilot, so that way we can actually start rolling it out to more and more pharmacies. So I'll take a moment right now to just say thank you for putting your hand up.
Thank you. No, we're so excited. And I feel, especially when we got to know of it, and then having the core team here there who will run and be part of that pilot, they've just taken it on board. So I think it's great opportunity for some of those people in your team who want to step up and do something and own something. It's such a great way for them to come into the innovation space, but also to have a say in a program and how it rolls out. How exciting for them, right? It's so cool, so cool. So thank you to IPA for the opportunity and for identifying our pharmacy as someone who could take on that pilot, because I think it's a testament to our pharmacy, but also to IPA for identifying us as a pharmacy who could do it.
Yeah, no, you were hand selected, hands down. So thank you. Congratulations. My last question now comes from ChatGPT. Now it's a curly one. So feel free to have a moment to think, just a moment though.
Okay.
Because even I had to think for just a moment. Okay. If you could go back in time and be the pharmacist to any historical figure, who would it be? And what modern day advice or product would you sneak in for them? I know it's curly because even I was like, I would do Abraham Lincoln, I would do Martin Luther King. And then I realized that they passed away from assassination. So
I know. Look, gosh, and like as soon as you said historical figure, my mind just went blank. I'm like, I know so many, but what is going on? Hold on. Okay, let me think. Look, it might not be something that oh gosh, let me think. And they might not have passed away from a disease or so, but I could still
even because I even thought John F. Kennedy,
right?
Yeah, Addison's, and I was like, maybe I could help him there. And then I thought, but he looked like it. He was fine.
All right, how about this? So, okay, I'll say Mahatma Gandhi, right? Oh, yeah. Okay, so I would say probably because he seemed like he looked malnutrition, so maybe a little bit of like Optifast perhaps, if it was like of the vegan variety, and maybe some sun care and skin, because he was quite exposed with what he was wearing as well, so perhaps some sun care, good moisturizer, and that would just help to keep him, his skin looking nice, and I guess just not, and he'd have the diet thing under control, and that would be good to go. He'd have the energy, and he'd look amazing when he was doing that, those talks and everything.
I hear you. Speaking of which, I actually also went down the Cleopatra route.
Oh yeah,
I would have gotten her some, because it said that she was stung by her poison was poison from an adder, and I was like, well, girl, I would have gotten you anti-venom and tell you it's not time for a man. This is not Romeo and Juliet. And you're okay, girl. They may have taken the city, they may have killed your man, but you're okay.
Yeah, exactly. You will still live if you had been there. Come on, Melody.
You are boss lady.
You?
Go and be boss lady.
That's right. It's a good one, actually. So she would have continued to be boss lady. From one boss lady to another, you would have had the solution. I love it.
Well, thank you so much for your
You're so
time.
welcome.
Thank
This was
you.
so
I
much fun.
feel, oh, that's good to hear. Since it was hard because I was like, she is an expert in this space. So how do I, come from a different angle? And I was like, just come
No,
from an
a good
angle,
chat
girl.
is better than anything, honestly. And I feel like you get so much more information out of people, and you did. So thank you. Thank you for letting me be on the podcast and for thinking of me and for letting me have an opportunity to talk about my journey, but especially about the CDC family, the IPA family. And I think from a CDC perspective, like the support we have has been amazing. And I know I can pick up the phone and call anybody anytime and somebody will be there to help. So I real credit to you guys for doing what you do, because there is so many of us to look after, and we're not always the easiest to deal with. It's like having multiple personality disorders that you're constantly having to manage, but it's been amazing, and I can see what IPA is trying to achieve and the vision that they have, and I know that we will realign to it. So it's been incredible. So thank you, Melody, and thank
No,
you,
thank
team.
you, Kavita. Thank you for being the guys on the ground doing all the work and inspiring us here at the head office. At Independent Pharmacies of Australia Group, we're dedicated to supporting a network of leading independent and bannered pharmacies nationwide with a vision to connect all member pharmacies under the IPA national brand. Recognized by Australians for elevating community healthcare to meet local needs. Thank you for joining us today on the Pharmacy Podcast. We appreciate your support in our mission to shape a thriving and patient-centric pharmacy industry. For more information about Independent Pharmacies of Australia, you can visit our website, ipagroup.com, or stay connected with us on social media. Thank you once again for joining us. We look forward to welcoming you back soon as we continue our journey together, enhancing community healthcare